Israel has violated this agreement from the get-go. They have not allowed the aid, and don't call it aid. It's food. They won't allow food. That's not aid. This is like a necessity of survival. Israel won't even allow that in. So this is just like, this is a colonialist and genocidal perspective that says Palestinian lives don't count, but Israeli, damage to Israelis is cause for, massive slaughter. Israel is incapable of an agreement, is incapable. Look at Israel's peace agreement with Lebanon. It's been violated 4,000 times in 1 year, and this current agreement, the so-called Trump agreement, has been violated over 125 times in like 2 weeks. So this is not an agreement. This is just, this is just an effort to achieve by ultimatum what the Israelis and the U.S. could not achieve with $38 billion over the last 2 years and the most vicious forces of empire that exist on the planet.
One of the biggest thing they want to spread among the working class in the United States and the West is nonstop nihilism. Just nonstop focusing every 4 years. Do you have any thoughts on that? But you see what I'm saying? They want to, when you just be focused on what's going to happen in the mayoral race. If Zoran loses, we're screwed. Trump won, we're screwed. You got to see it just go every election. It's nonstop nihilism. These are the same people that, why even have a general strike? Why even try to organize outside of a pro-genocide party? What's the point? And that's why I try to stop. But just don't you have any thoughts? I know you want to chime in. Thanks for joining us on BN.
Oh, sure. I mean, Noam Chomsky always used to say, that manufacturing consent is a lot of work, and you have all these tools of empire and mainstream media, and they have to give it to you 24/7 to create the impression that that we're losing, because we're not losing. I mean, to like look at what happened here in the U.S. There was like a total turnaround in the opinion about Zionism and Israel, and whereas it was, it was a minority point of view. October 7th in 2023, it was a shrinking minority view, but now it's the majority point of view, and more people identify and support Palestinians than do Israelis, and a majority of Americans wants us not only to stop supporting Israel's military, but even Israel's economy, which is even further in the down the path of enlightenment. And it's something like a 2-to-1 ratio now of people who abhor Israel's genocide and people who don't get it at all. So in fact, we're winning here. Where we're not winning is in the hijack of big money and corporations and oligarchs on our political system. So, that's why the fight also has to be political as well as an issue-based fight. And if it's only an issue-based fight, then it's a fight of divide and conquered. And we're divided among, advocates for healthcare as a human right, or for social housing, and rent control, or, to rein in AIPAC and make it illegal, basically, make it a violation of FARA, which is what it is. We can't afford to be divided in those different little pigeonholes. That's how I got to be a political animal, after my hair had turned this color and I had been fighting issue battles for decades, and realized that it's just a game of divide and conquer, and we have to work together in larger coalitions over time and space. And we've got the numbers, as Malcolm X said, and I'll conclude with this. We are not outnumbered, we're just out-organized. This is about getting methodically organized in the face of an oligarchy that is stronger all the time. And shout out, to all those candidates who are fighting that battle now, from Butch Ware, who's running a really powerful campaign for governor in California, where there are big openings based on, the Zionist Democratic Party in California is crashing and burning. And what's her name? Katie, whatever her name is, Porter. She's like the leading candidate who's like 24/7. Yeah, she's Right. Their leads are melting down, or Shama Sawant, running a fabulous congressional campaign. And we are about to announce two more congressional candidates that I can't say anything about yet, but who are really exciting. So, don't let them talk you into powerlessness. That's the whole name of their game, is to try to persuade you that you are powerless, so you will be hopeless. If you're hopeless, they have you exactly where they want you. So just, as a matter of course, straight out of the gate, just reject what Empire and mainstream media are trying to bang into your head. It's absolutely the opposite of what is true. And they are scared shitless right now because our numbers are growing, our organization is growing, and just look at the turnaround on Zionism and Israel's genocide, that the American people and the people all over the world are up in arms right now. And in fact, that's why they are ramming forward, the preposterous Trump plan, which was not a peace plan, and it was not a plan at all. It was an ultimatum for surrender that they couldn't accomplish with military means, with $38 billion of our taxpayer money here over the past 2 years. They couldn't do it, with the most, as Martin Luther King said, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today could not inflict that on the Palestinians. So they tried to pull a fast one with this preposterous peace plan, which is not a peace plan and which has now completely crashed and burned. And there's method, to this madness. There's reason why it was happening. There was another plan which had enormous support in the UN and which still can enable a protection force to actually composed only of anti-genocide countries that are not, compliant with the genocide. So this has to be forces that are approved of by Palestine. Palestine is basically in charge. This is not the Security Council process. The Security Council process is extremely disempowering and is dangerous. And, and is sort of the Haiti type model, which has been a complete disaster and full of human rights abuses. The alternative here is called Uniting for Peace. It goes through the General Assembly. That's like the rank and file. It's not the elites, the big powerful countries in the UN that have veto. This is like the rank and file of the world joining together to overwhelm the US veto, basically, and to do an end run, because the nations of the world, about 90%, support Palestinian rights and condemn the genocide and want to see the progress in the International Court of Justice, which gave the order, which in several rulings now has said the occupation must end, that the apartheid state must end, the settlements need to be taken down, that the right of return and compensation needs to be respected. Not only did the court come up with that, but the UN then affirmed that by a 90% vote and gave Israel 1 year to comply with that ruling. That 1 year was up in the middle of September. And that put the fear of God into US and Israel, which may have a lot to do with why suddenly this Trump plan appeared. And they tried to pass that off as some kind of a solution to the genocide, which it's not. It only worsens the genocide. And it's an investment plan. It's a self-enrichment plan for the, for the Trump family and also for the Witkoff family, the very ones who were negotiating it. So, it's really important to reject what they tell you and to understand that we actually have the wind at our back. We have the numbers, we have the moral high ground here, and we actually have the mechanisms and the means, starting with enforcing an end to this genocide in Gaza. And by the way, you can sign a petition. You can also send a letter to the Security Council to tell them to reject the Trump plan, because they're still trying to ram it through, although they keep running into little snafus. Like they said, they had countries that were going to provide this stabilization force, which stabilizes what? It stabilizes genocide. It stabilizes occupation. We don't want a stabilization force. That's what the US, France, and the UK are trying to ram down our throats. What the people of the world want is a protection force at the request of Palestine and under the control of Palestine. This is not about another occupation force. This is about giving the power of the world community, which is in agreement here. And this has been used before, by the way, in the Suez in the 1950s. This was used, and what did it accomplish? It got Israel, France, and the UK out of Egypt at Egypt's request. So there's a model for this. It has worked before. And there's no reason, a lot of people are pushing the Trump plan, or they were at least before it completely crashed and burned. They were pushing it saying, oh, well, it's better. There's less starvation. There's less genocide. There's less bombing. Well, maybe not less. And less is not okay. A genocide is a genocide. So at any rate, there is an alternative.
And they still lying about it, Jill. And that was an amazing opening spill, Jill. It's great to have you on. There's so many different ways I can take that, but not only have they been actively lying on behalf of Trump, you had Dana Bash, who was shaming people who were not celebrating the ceasefire. She was shaming celebrities who protested against Israel. She said, "Why aren't you thankful now? Why aren't you thanking Trump for the ceasefire deal?" You had the United States media that are purposely lying about this, as Israel just blatantly, openly violating the ceasefire.
And there's not a ceasefire on record that Israel has ever complied with. I mean, absolutely. As far as Israel is concerned, that ceasefire is still in effect because an Israeli ceasefire is indistinguishable from a genocide.
And they said, and you still have the corporate media repeating this ad nauseum, that the reason why they killed 100 Palestinians was that an IDF soldier died in Gaza. But the IDF soldier died because he tripped his own bomb that they was planning despite a ceasefire. So their own idiot IDF member smoked themselves, and they used that as a pretext to murder over 100 people. And if you look at all these headlines, they will say stuff like, Israel murdered 100 Palestinians, Israel accused Hamas of violating ceasefire. Like, that last part doesn't even have to be on there. They've been muddying the waters on behalf of Israel. Not only that, you have the Trump administration that's still actively lying about this. Here, J.D. Vance, I want you to respond to this.
The president achieved a historic peace in the Middle East. The ceasefire is holding. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be little skirmishes here and there. We know that Hamas or somebody else within Gaza attacked an IDF soldier.
No, that IDF soldier killed himself because he tripped an Israeli bomb. Jill, you see what they're doing here?
And come on, I mean, dozens and dozens of people are killed almost every day. Even before this, like last night, where over 100 people were killed in one instance. And just a few days before, it was like 45 people were killed. Those don't count. It's only like the occasional Israeli soldier who gets hurt. Then suddenly that's reason to violate the ceasefire, but not these deaths after deaths of Israelis. And besides, Israel has violated this agreement from the get-go. They have not allowed the aid, and don't call it aid. It's food. They won't allow food. That's not aid. This is like a necessity of survival. Israel won't even allow that in. So this is just like, this is a colonialist and genocidal perspective that says Palestinian lives don't count, but Israeli, damage to Israelis is cause for, massive slaughter. Israel is incapable of an agreement, is incapable. Look at Israel's peace agreement with Lebanon. It's been violated 4,000 times in 1 year, and this current agreement, the so-called Trump agreement, has been violated over 125 times in like 2 weeks. So this is not an agreement. This is just, this is just an effort to achieve by ultimatum what the Israelis and the U.S. could not achieve with $38 billion over the last 2 years and the most vicious forces of empire that exist on the planet. It's not going to happen, period. And, it's on us to reject this nonsense and to push ahead. And I really want to encourage people to go to lifelineforpalestine.com. and sign up for the newsletter, because this is all about galvanizing the power that we have right now. We shouldn't have to just confine ourselves to critiquing the news cycle here. We have to push back and we have to organize, because we do have the power, and there is this mechanism in the UN, which they are just scared shitless that we should utilize. And the UN has already committed to doing this. They've already committed 1 year ago. They said, Israel, you got 1 year to comply with the rulings of the International Court of Justice and end the occupation. And that didn't happen at 1 year. So time was up. And it was time when the UN said that they were going to actually enact measures to compel Israel to comply. So that's what's on the table right now. And we have to stand up and use that. So go to lifelineforpalestine.com, sign up for the newsletter, sign on for the actions. There's a whole bunch of actions, including signing the petition to President Petro. Now, Petro's in hot water right now, and this may be in part retribution for his being a part of this plan, because he stepped up to say that Colombia would sponsor this proposal before the UN General Assembly, this so-called Uniting for Peace process, which goes to the rank and file, the General Assembly, but it needs a sponsor. And so Petro stepped up. And then the U.S. threw him out, told him he had to leave. They canceled his visa here in the U.S. He was here for UN meetings. So I think they're a little touchy about this, as they should be, because they are outnumbered. They are, they are out everything on this. There's just a lot of energy and power and momentum and morality here. And this is what humanity wants. So we should not allow this to be taken away from us. We have the mechanism, we have the means, and there is a bill, and Petro needs to know that we have his back, because he's in a lot of hot water, and the U.S. is threatening to go after him as well as Maduro now. So they're trying to make this as complicated as possible. Yeah. But the people of the world are not happy about this genocide and do not want to just throw up our hands and say, well, this is the way it's going to be from here on out. So we have a way to fight back. And let me just say that the more we fight back against the genocide is a microcosm of empire. The more we unify to stop the genocide, the more we are unifying to push back against empire in an ongoing way. This should not be a one-off. Empire is crashing and burning all around us. So it's really important that we seize the moment here to unify as humanity across the globe to use the power that we actually have. And, both Indonesia and Malaysia have already stepped up to say that they would provide 20,000 troops apiece if it was requested. So there is a real means here of moving forward. And the Trump plan is trying to ram through the Security Council and pretend that that's the solution and use those troops from Malaysia and Indonesia. And that is like exactly the opposite of what's needed here. And fortunately, lots of countries are backing away now that said that they would support this plan and would provide the troops for the stabilization force. Suddenly they've all run for the hills, as they should. They should not be a part of this crazy plan.
I love how you have this revolutionary call to action in this moment, and that's what we'll get to very soon. I love how you dive right into that, because I was gonna I wanted to pick your brain about what we should be doing in this moment. So I'm glad you dived into that first, and we're gonna get to Chris Smalls, and because you guys have a big labor action. But before I do that, we were trying to spread and grow our other channels. I'm trying to grow my personal YouTube channel. So on the RBN channel, I'm going to end the RBN stream, but we're still live on Rumble, on X, and on my personal YouTube channel. So the RBN side will be ended. I think that's a good part to end on part one on RBN, because there's still a lot I want to pick your brain on. This has been fantastic, and I'm very fired up, because you guys know I'm all about solution, what we should be doing next. And you and Chris Smalls have a call for labor and what labor should be doing this moment. We've seen what the Italian working class was threatening, and when you see what Jill Stein and we've been following you, and we see this anti-Zionist movement that I'm working on, like, because you guys know I'm very tanky, like politically, but I'm willing to work with anyone who is willing to challenge, because I see this crack in the empire, I see the crack in the regime, because we know that Zionism is a part of the imperial structure. And as people turn against Zionism, this is a revolutionary opportunity. I showed earlier before how Donald Trump is historically unpopular. So as liberals well in nihilism, and they're like, oh my God, we got another Trump term. We are losing our democracy. As they are bathing in nihilism, I'm like, this is perfect. We picking off the people who left the Democratic Party because of genocide. Now you have Donald Trump, who's historically unpopular. Many of the MAGA people are turning against Zionism, realizing Trump is just a puppet. And now this is the opportunity for us to grab those people off the pendulum and continue to build this anti-Zionist movement. And that's what we've been focused on, not about just election cycles. That's what made the progressive left, which I would never trust, that what made their smears on you so disgusting. Like these are the people like AOC who said Jill Stein disappeared. We don't have to rehash it, but you guys see the smear job that these people say. Dr. Jill Stein disappears every 4 years. Does it sound like she disappears? She constantly working. That's why it's great to be in solidarity and communion with you, Dr. Stein. We will continue to work to fight the Zionist regime.